Well, hello, I'm back. It's Saturday. I thought I was going to be in the 10B unloading a new toy today, but due to unforeseen circumstances, it couldn't be delivered today. It'll be at some undetermined later date. I'll most certainly let you know when it shows up. And it was really cold today. It was only 3 above this morning. This week it's supposed to warm up considerably though. So I'm in my basement and I'm going to be working on some more parts for the 60. We have the cam followers, or tappets, whatever you want to call them, and what I call the tappet blocks that they go in. And I have to clean those up. They were rusted in there incredibly tight. It took the press to get most of them out, and quite a lot of pressure on top of it. And the push rods, where they fit in here, some of those, there was the rust in there was so bad it was difficult getting the push rods pulled out of them when I took it apart. So I'm going to start cleaning these up. I've got some of them done already, and I just like doing it by hand. I have a deburring tool, good sharp edge and hard for scraping the rust out. So I'm going to keep at that, and I'll show you the steps, what I go through as I do them. First, I just try to scrape the heavy rust off. And if you can see it, there's an oil groove down the side here, and I go in with the sharp awl so I can get right down into the corners of that. I'm using that in any of the real sharp corners to get all the way into the corners. This one, the groove was pretty clean. A couple of them, the groove was just completely full of rust. Take my cut-off wire brush for cleaning copper fittings, plumbing, and use that inside. It always reverse the drill because the bristles get a lot more aggressive that way. And now after cleaning, I can see I get in and there's some scaly stuff that the brush didn't take off. I actually got to scrape off with the deburring tool. Starting to look pretty good in there. Then I work some emery cloth around the wire brush so I can get in and polish it better. Now I'll try and get it in this end. It's kind of hard to get it worked in there, but when you get in there, it does a really nice job. I switched wire brushes to clean in here. You can see it's looking pretty darn nice. Now I'm going to wire up the outside disc and the gasket surface and just the top surface here. It's looking pretty good now. Inside and around here. And some of you may wonder why I'm not wire brushing this clean. I want this machine to look as though it hasn't been taken apart. So I'm not wire brushing anything off on the outside that isn't loose. I'll wash it with a nylon bristle brush, but I'm not going to wire brush anything. I want it to look as much original as possible. Now I'll go on to one of the lifters. You can see it's very rusty on the bottom. I'll show you how I'll address that later. Because they're very rusty on the bottom and inside where the push rod goes. But now I'm going to go at cleaning these up on the wire brush. Now, if you can see it, there's quite a bit of pitting on the bottom of the lifter. I mean, I can catch it with this little awl, and I'll show you later how I'm going to address that, because it's more than what I want running against a camshaft, way too rough. But now I'm going to continue at cleaning out this hole on this end. Same thing, I'll take my deburring tool and just scrape all the rust loose in there. This one isn't real bad. There's another one here that's real bad. After the deburring tool, take the wire brush. That looks good in there now. It's looking much better. Now I'm going to go on to the pushrod tubes. This is the pushrod tube that's probably in the worst condition. As you can see, it must have been full of water and froze and split, so a repair has to be made there. The end of it is quite rusted off, but you'll see later that really won't matter much. Anyway, I start out with, I cut off another one of those plumbing brushes and welded it to a rod so I can clean through the tube with that. You can see the amount of rust coming out there, just like smoke. Now we'll go in from this end. Now I'll actually keep at that until I don't have any more dust coming out. It's quite clean already, but I'll keep at those until no dust is coming out. Now I wire brush off this end of it. Now when these come apart, the spring goes on in the washer, and this is one of the old seals that came out. First I thought they were maybe cork, but I don't know, they might be some kind of felt or leather, but they fit in here. And you push the tube down, move it over at the top into position, and then the spring holds it up. So I'm going to show you, and that's why it isn't real important that the end of this tube is somewhat rusted off, because the seal winds up around it right there. So I actually don't even have to repair that. So I'll show you what I came up with for these seals. Now if you remember, this heavy shoe leather I used for the back crankcase cover, I'm going to use that for these seals. First I came up with, this is the first one I had done. I made the strip, put a 45 on it. I had to grind the thickness down a little bit so it would fit in like that. And then the pushrod tube goes in it. I'm showing it here without the spring on it. And then I got thinking, the first one I made, this leather is just flush with the top, and I got thinking the leather should protrude a little above it, so that when the spring pushes down on it, it will eventually squeeze that leather down in there tighter. So the next one I made a little wider so that the leather protrudes out a little bit. And these I'm going to let soak in oil until I install them, so that they're nice and soft when they go in, and eventually spring pressure should squeeze them down. But then I thought one more step. Instead of making it at a 45 in that direction, I made that a 45 in this direction, so when the spring pressure pushes down on it, it pushes that seal tight together, the two leather ends. So it'll go in like that. Spring and washer. This one's a little hard to work with because that end is jagged. But you'll push it in like that, and then the spring pressure will be pushing down on that leather. And you know, with time and oil, it should squeeze, you know, the more it pushes, the more it'll squeeze in there and seal it up. So now I'm going to go at making another leather seal like that. So first, make sure it's wide enough. A little longer. Put a 45 on one end, 45 on the other end. I make it a little longer because I can always grind it down. Because this leather is actually hard enough, I can take it on a grinding wheel. I got to grind it a little thinner. I'm going to clean it all up and then shape it around and see how it fits. So you could see I could actually dress it up real nice on just a plain grinding wheel. So now I'm going to try pressing it around. Oh, I might have made that one a little too short. I'm going to use a pushrod tube that isn't jagged on the ends, because that'll... Yeah, I made that one too short. Oh, that's why I should have just made it too long and didn't trim down. So I have to start over on that one. Put the 45 on it. This time I'm going to make it plenty long. You can always shorten it. You know how it is, you can cut it off, but you can't cut it back on. Now I'll see how this one fits. Just a smidgen too long yet. All right, that looks pretty darn good. Nice snug fit. I think I grind it just a little bit thinner. So I'm going to have to cut this off here because I can only post 15-minute videos. I'll follow it up with a part 2, finishing up with the lifters and pushrod tubes. So thanks again for watching, and probably catch you tomorrow with the rest of this.